So the first thing, I thank Stuart and Joe for the organization of the conference. It's an important conference linking East and West, and it's a good opportunity to meet everybody, to present our works, research, and program. But what are we doing here? What are you doing here? We are coming from different regions. We are coming from different parts of the world, different systems, different organizations, and we are all together to speak about different things, about history, about sociology, about art. We are not involved in chemistry, we are not involved in medicine, we are not involved in non-human sciences. We are involved in human sciences. A lot of persons can say, we are doing nothing. We are just speaking. But speak about human sciences is the most important thing we can do. Because in chemistry, in medicine, in sciences, everything will be obsolete very quickly. But humanity is not obsolete. Humanity will continue, and humanity will be one of the most important subjects of research for the next years. So, I wanted to propose and to show you one example, a small example of what we are doing actually. I mean, beginning with some very specific points concerning monetary history, and trying to show how a small point in history can involve the complete world slowly. It's a kind of, I spoke about butterfly effect. One thing involving mines in Mexico, in America, will concern slowly at this period the complete world, creating a new relation between states, creating something completely new in the first globalization at this period. We are dealing in this program with monetary history and economy. We are dealing with a lot of persons, we are dealing with a lot of facts, and trying to organize everything to understand what is economic history. To understand what is economic history, it's a long problem, and which we decided to work in a study of currency. It is because if you want to understand history, and especially economic history, you have to consider what is common to all the civilization, all the periods, all the moments, all the continents, and to make exactly what is specific to this kind of approach and what is specific to everybody. I spoke about humanity. Economic history is the history of humanity. And if we want to understand the development, we have to find the conditions of the development. And the condition everywhere, at any time of the development, is linked to several factors. And we have to find what are exactly the condition of development beyond the facts. First one, if you want to have an economic development, you need to have workers. If there is nobody, there is no development. That's clear. You need to have food, because without food, the economic development and the possibility to work is absent. You need to have enough food to develop. Economic development is always linked to the possibility to feed the person. Corn, potatoes, changing the agricultural way to get food, and so on. You need to have construction material. That means clearly you need to have wood, stones, because without, you cannot do anything. You cannot build anything. You cannot construct anything for the future. You need to have energy. Without energy, there is no possibility to have any kind of economic development. And you need to have currency. Without currency, you cannot trade, you cannot exchange, you cannot accumulate capital and financial possibilities. And every time in history, economic development is linked to currency. And we have a lot of testimonies of this currency. From Antiquity to Middle Ages to modern periods, there are thousands and thousands of tons produced by mints and produced by and kept by orders. This is a Celtic coins. You see how many hundreds of coins. This is a Marie Theresa coins struck in Austria, produced at millions of specimens and sent everywhere in Africa. But it was the beginning of development. And economic development, there is a lot of coins, a lot of different coins, a lot of different things. And of course, if you want to trade, you have to have a kind of unit of account and unit of exchange. That means you have a kind of unification. And the history of currency and the history of economic development is always linked between period of unification and period of disunification. And it's absolutely clear that during history, we are balancing from one to another. And now we are a period of unification with euro, but in some cases, unification is approved and pushed by bankers and traders. In some cases, it's refused by population.
Lorsque les nations se mettent à l'ombre des monuments historiques par peur du présent, c'est aux historiens de prendre la parole. L'euro est mis à la détresse en 2002. Ça a été un pays dans la top 10 et 8 autres pays souhaitent rentrer dans la zone. Aujourd'hui, on l'accuse d'être à l'origine des crises économiques.
As you can see, every time currency, monetary unions is linked to the past. When Greeks protested against euro, they did it making some references to their own history. And one thing you have to remember, that if we are speaking of euro actually, it is because all the previous unification failed. And what I said to the bank, European Bank, they are not very happy to have this kind of history, but it's a fact. All the previous monetary unification failed, and each time there is a new kind of unification. Let's have a look to the past and some examples.
Il est échangeable contre toutes les espèces. Mais le coût des armées contribue au déficit de la monnaie. Et c'est donc l'inflation qui cause la disparition de À la fin du Moyen-Âge, le buffet de forêt d'or s'écoule dans toute l'Europe, même vers l'Europe. Cette nouvelle économie favorise certaines régions au détriment d'autres. Au XVIe siècle, c'est le gros frappé avec l'argent des mines d'Europe centrale qui inonde le marché. À travers les guerres et les croisades, c'est un monde européen et méditerranéen qui se constitue. Au XVIIIe siècle, c'est le calèche qui donnera plus tard son nom au dollar. L'Europe découvre les avantages de la stabilité monétaire et diffuse ses espèces vers tous les continents. L'expansion monétaire favorise le commerce et les activités bancaires. Enfin, au XIXe siècle, le franc, avec les monnaies associées, domine l'Europe après la Révolution française. L'industrialisation de la frappe et de l'impression des billets permet de monétariser la totalité de la société.
So there was a succession of union and disunion. What is important for our program is to work on a specific period. That means between second half of 19th century. It is a very specific period because it's a moment where the main states in Europe decided to make a kind of unification. And it's a moment where they decided to give the possibility to all the currencies to circulate in all the countries linked by this kind of agreement. Slowly, from one period to another period, this kind of agreement concerns the largest part of Europe, even some colonies, and even in Central Europe. That means that a Spanish coin can be struck in Spain, used in Italy, or in Switzerland, or in France. It was exactly the same kind of coins. The legends were different, but the weight and the shape of the coin and the alloy of the coin were absolutely the same. It's the first time in monetary history and in history when different countries agreed to have the same coinage and to produce the coins on the same basis and to develop economy with monetary unions. Monetary unions and union, Latin Union, that is the official name of the agreement, gives the possibility to have a very important economic development. It was possible to trade, like actually in euro, with euro. It was possible to exchange everything. It was possibility to pay everything without any difficulty. The coins, the monetary units were absolutely the same in Europe. And it was one of the main reasons of the development of the 19th century. It was possibility to borrow, to rent, to pay, to exchange with the same unit of account, with the same currency. And everybody knows, even in Japan, even in Asia, even in Africa, everybody knows that it's possible to develop wealth and economy. It was at the basis of our civilization. This possibility to exchange and to pay was exactly at the origin of railways, mines, cities, development that are still at the basis of our civilization. Of course, if I was speaking about art, I can show you some sculpture, I can show you some paintings. But to speak about economic development, what can I show you? Nearly nothing. What we can imagine is how the people were living in this period. And some years ago, I was in Italy. And in Italy, I was in Sicily. And in Sicily, I was in Palermo. Palermo is one of the largest cities of Italy. It was very important during the 19th century because it was a place where boats were going to and living for trade. And in Palermo, there is a castle, there is a palace. And in the palace, there was a big room. And in this big room, it was a kind of demonstration what is wealth at the 19th century. Of course, what is important in this movie is not Alain Delon and Claudia Cardinal. It was in this place where I was, in Palermo, in this room where I've been shot this film of Visconti. It was important to see how people in some years can accumulate wealth, can accumulate possibility to trade, and used this possibility to trade with monetary union to develop Italy, and especially in Sicily, that was at this moment one of the most important places for trade. There is no trade without currency, there is no currency without union, and there is no possibility to develop wealth, trade without monetary union. And this is a problem in the 19th century. As you have seen, currency is based on silver and gold. There is a complete relation between silver and gold, and this relation is based on the quantity available at this moment between silver and gold. That means, more or less, 1 gram of gold is equivalent to 15.5 grams of silver. It is a traditional relation since Antiquity. And this relation, monetary and commercial relation, is at the basis of everything during this period, up to the 19th century. This basis, this relation, is absolutely stable. That means you can pay in gold, pay in silver. That's exactly the same thing. It is the same thing, and it gives the possibility, according to the tradition, according to what you have in your pocket, to pay in each metal, gold or silver. It's a period of stability. And stability with union, with political stability, it's at the basis of development. At this moment, what was the situation in the world? More or less, there are a group of countries using gold and silver. That's what we call bimetallism. Mainly complete Americas, Africa, Europe, and Russia. In this country, you can use gold or silver when you want, if you want, but you have this possibility. At the same moment, some countries may use silver instead of gold. That's the case of Asia. China, Japan, and all the countries, and of course India. And some countries are using only gold. That's the case of Great Britain. That's the situation, normal situation in the middle of 19th century. But the problem is, if you want to have a stable economic situation, you need to have a stable relation between gold and silver. And you need absolutely to have the same quantity of gold and silver on the market. But the problem is that in the middle of 19th century, there was a gold rush. And Charles Chaplin, of course, is the most famous presentation of the gold rush. And this gold increased the quantity of metal available on the market. It was the middle of the 19th century. In the second part of 19th century, a lot of new mines of silver was discovered and exploited with new technology, and bringing a lot of metal on the market. So if you are adding brutally gold and silver on the market, it destroys completely the relation between the two metals. And if the relation between the two metals is destroyed, you are destroying the monetary system. And if you are destroying the monetary system, you are running in crisis. And this is a problem. And this is our topic, actually. This is what we are doing and trying to understand. Because the story is not so simple. It's a little bit more complicated. During one moment, you remember this map. It's a succession of events. First, the end of the Civil War in the States. The creation of transcontinental trade will give the possibility to import metal, but machine to exploit the metal. And the opening of new mines that was discovered at this moment. In Central America, they found new mines of silver, increasing the possibility to exploit silver and to use silver. In Europe, the main event was the defeat of France during the German-French war, and France have to pay 5 billion francs in gold to Germany. And it was the reason why Germany shifted from bimetallism to monometallism. In China, the main countries tried to develop colonies and to open China to the trade. In Japan, it was the Meiji era and the opening of Japan. During this period, so a lot of new metal was discovered and put on the market, mainly from this region, and this metal was in Europe and in Asia. But what means to send metal. Look at your pocket. You have few coins, perhaps no coins. And immediately, if I speak about sending metal, you imagine people with, I don't know, 100 grams. If you want to imagine something more important, you think that 1 kilo. And you think in boats there are perhaps 10 kilos, 100 kilos. And you imagine that there are a lot of boats, vessels going from one continent to another continent. So imagine, let's imagine 1,000 boats with, let's say, 1 ton of silver. That's nothing. Flutes of silver was enormous. Enormous because every boat was bringing tons and hundreds of tons. So you have to imagine thousands and thousands of tons of silver moving from America, going to Europe, going to Asia, or going directly from America to Asia. Depreciation of silver, that is the main topic of our research, is not a problem of small things. It's enormous, enormous quantity of gold silver moving and destroying everything. I told you beginning, monetary unions and this relation between gold and silver, what at the basis of economic development. For people and traders, gold and silver were like two horses promoting the trade and the economy. That's the situation at the beginning of the 19th century. After, the increasing quantity of gold and silver was one of the problems of economy between states and different countries. And at the end, the main countries choose gold against silver. But this kind of situation is not easy. And it was a crisis, like our crisis. What we are doing with this program, that we'll continue doing some years, is to have a kind of research financed by different institutions from France and paid by different funds. And we plan to organize a new study of this phenomenon. A new study that's first to go back to the documentation, to go back to the report, to go back to the conferences. This kind of conferences held in France and in Britain about this crisis. We want to publish also new statistics. And of course, we will disseminate the result. But what we want is not only to publish the documentation, because if you are publishing the documentation, you are only a statistician. What we want is not to explain the story, because if you explain the story, you are only a journalist. We want to understand. We want to find the complete bulk of documentation, the complete data, and make links between one fact and another to explain the third one. To be historian is to explain, not to make a story. It's to explain and to understand. This documentation, what is published, is concerned mainly international monetary conferences or national series of documents in Europe and in Asia. These documents that are not available actually will be on the basis of all the interpretation. And we want to disseminate. It's not useful to work if everybody has problems to get the documentation. We have conferences, we have a website, and we have mainly videos of the presentations. We want to understand how, when, why the economic development and the monetary system react to this increase of silver. Let's have a look to see how important it was. This is the development of silver after the gold rush. This is the development of gold after the gold rush. You see, it's changed completely the stock of gold. This is development of silver. It's a long development of silver. One was stable, more or less. This one. The monetary stock was stable after the mid-19th century. One was unstable and increasing. And the result was a decrease of the value of silver. This is this decrease what is important for us. It began in the end of the 60s with some period of increase linked to decision, political and economical decision. And after the end of this political decision, it was the beginning of the depreciation of silver up to this period, I mean the 90s. And it's general situation. This is a graphic from London. This is a graphic in Shanghai. Everybody, everywhere at this moment suffered from the depreciation of silver. That means if you give me 10 grams of silver, and you say, okay, this 10 grams of silver is this gram of gold. And if you want to be paid in gold, I have to pay in gold, or I have to give you, in example, 15 grams of silver. That means the weight of the debts is very important. The weight of taxes is very important. For India, in example, it doubles the cost of the taxes to pay in England. So if we want to understand exactly what is to be done, we have to see what we can say the ecosystems. And we can build a new approach of the ecosystem. One is Pacific. That means that silver was sent from America to Asia, instead to try to decrease the importance of the silver. Gold was taken from Siberia and Mongolia and sent back to America. The idea was to send the gold in Asia, where the gold was used, and to get back gold. In the rest of the world, the situation was the same. 80% of the silver was exchanged in London, and from London sent to India or Asia, and London received gold from South Africa or Australia, or even India to get the taxes paid. So we decided to have a lot of meetings to see how the things are moving and how we can understand the things. In different places in Europe, in Asia actually, and next year's in Sicily and in Copenhagen. We also want to promote our researches with the website. And in the website, you can see all the works and all the presentations.
Normal unit currency system. They did not issue multiple currency. There are no questions.
And that emperor not showing is a real capital country. But in reality, since
it's a small change, I call them small coins. Only 30 coins are gold. This is 27 Street.
And a new currency was introduced with a high silver intrinsic value. There was a monetary.
And the advantage of the website is to see that the increasing connection to the website. That means it's a large dissemination of what we are doing. Publication also. We are trying to publish everything in time to give the documentation first, but also concerning different countries, but also to publish synthesis. First, with publication and our conferences. What we want to do is to understand who benefits of this crisis. And what we can say, the main actor and the main who benefit of the crisis was London, where 80% of the gold, 80% of the silver was sold and exchanged. Who paid? Who suffered from the crisis? Mainly workers from the mine of silver and many countries dominated by the colonization. And what was the crisis? In fact, it's not a crisis linked to the overproduction of silver. It's a crisis that is an important transfer of wealth from colonies, from Asia, from Africa to Europe. So, if we consider globally the crisis, and if we consider what happened in this period, it's very similar to different crises. I mean, Great Depression, shock, mortgage crisis, and European debt crisis. Each case, it's a transfer of wealth and transfer of currency from one country to another. Each time, the dominant country used monetary system to organize transfer of power and wealth. What is important is to understand. I ask you what we are doing. We are dealing with humanity. And what is important if with our work, it can give analysis and prevent different situations, new situations. That's important to do this. And this is the reason why our work and our researches are important for humanities.